Welcome to See You at the Table, where stories meet grace. Here we gather, not just to speak, but to listen. If you want to witness how God brings people together from all around the world through powerful testimonies, tune in and see you at the table. Here's today's host.
All right, here we are, back at the table. Good to see you here. We have somebody who's been really instrumental in getting this podcast going and really doing a lot of cool stuff with Campus Ministries this summer. We have Hollyn with us. Hollyn, introduce yourself for us.
Hi, my name is Hollyn. I'm a senior music student.
Music.
And
I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. All right, sorry.
No, that
Music
was
student?
beautiful. Yeah, I'm a music student, and I'm a summer ministries intern through June.
You are my children's babysitter.
Yes, so I work 2 jobs. Trent is like the boss of both.
Well, Sarah's more the boss than I am. But, yeah. Man, we're so glad, and you really have been super instrumental in making this happen and a big part of ministry already and things that are happening. But, Hollyn, I would love, one thing we've been asking everybody is kind of how'd you end up at CU, why CU in general? If you were to give us in a nutshell, how'd you get here?
Yeah, so I joined band in 6th grade.
Uh-oh.
We're starting all the way back
What do you
there.
play?
Percussionist. So anything you
Drums?
can hit with a stick. Yeah.
The triangle?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of technique there.
Okay.
But yeah, I started band in 6th grade. I'd taken piano lessons for years before that.
Yeah.
And did band all throughout middle school and high school. And then got into my senior year. I had no idea what I wanted to do in life.
Classic.
Kept flip-flopping back and forth. Thought about being an occupational therapist.
Really?
Yeah. Really, yeah.
Okay.
Thought about being a speech therapist,
Nice.
all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I remember some of the music faculty from CU were going to come do a jazz concert
Jazz.
at our school for the music students at school.
That's awesome.
And, my percussion teacher, he was like, you need to be the one to go to the office and bring them to the band room. And I was kind of like, why are you making me do that? And he was like, no reason, because he graduated from CU.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Both of my band directors.
Yeah.
So they always pushing the CU agenda.
Yeah, you were destined for CU.
Yeah, I really had no choice.
Who were your band directors?
Their names are Austin Gilliott and then Adam Hopper.
Okay.
And so now he's Dr. Hopper, and he actually teaches here.
Dr. Hopper.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you could have him
You're
on.
invited to come to another podcast episode if you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Hop on over.
Uh-huh.
Oh. But yeah, so he had me go pick up Dr. Floyd from the front office of the school.
Yeah.
And we're walking to the band room, and he's trying to make small talk, and he says, oh, what year are you? I said, I'm a senior. He said, oh, what do you play? I was like, percussion.
Mm-hmm.
And he stopped me in the hallway and was like, why haven't you looked at CU? And I just said, I don't know, because I don't know what I want to do. And so the rest of that day, the time they were there, anytime there was a pause in the day, because they did a little practice session before the performance and then after the performance, like he would come up to me and be like talking about CU and pushing it.
He just recruited you the rest of the day.
Literally, yeah. And this was in, I graduated in May from high school. This was in probably like March.
Yeah.
Maybe February.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, I was really like
Down to the wire.
So, yeah, I mean, we scheduled an audition date that day. I only auditioned at one other school for music, which was Moorhead. I didn't go there.
Yeah.
No offense to them, it just wasn't for me. Yeah, and I never actually took a tour of the school. I came here and I auditioned, and I was kind of like, yeah, I guess I'm going to go to Campbellsville. So that was that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Wow. And here you are.
I know.
Yeah. Life's being changed. Mm-hmm. So with that, though, obviously there's this faith journey for you that's happened throughout your life. And I'd love to hear just a little bit of your faith journey and kind of how God has taught you or led you. And I know that could be a big story, probably, a lot of things. But, if you were going to give us kind of a summary of your faith journey, what would that look like?
Pretty typical Kentuckian, born and raised in the Baptist church, really small Baptist church, probably 30 people on a good
Were there
Sunday.
cows in the backyard of the church?
There were not.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if there had been, though. But, yeah, really tiny Baptist church. Kind of just, like, several big families that went to the church and then several, like, older people, honestly. So my family, we were, like, the janitors. My Nana was the piano player. Then my mom was the piano player. That's why she had me do piano lessons, because
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to play piano for the church. Like, we were the janitors. At one point, we were the treasurers. We did the music stuff.
Wow.
I taught Sunday school at one point. So, like, really small church. Like,
Yeah. You grew up in it?
yeah. Like, I probably went to church. My first Sunday, I probably was, like, a 2-week-old, and they probably took me to Sunday school.
Okay.
And we stayed there till I was 16. And that was around the time COVID hit. And we just kind of, I know, awful. We just felt led to kind of move on to something different. We ended up finding a place called the Creek Church in Somerset. Well, it's a part of like a bigger network of churches, and that was completely different from anything I'd ever known.
Yeah, you went from little church to like really big church.
Yeah, I mean, we went from like no like drums or no microphones. It was just the piano player, one guitar player, whole congregation stands up and sings out of the red hymn book.
Right.
And we walked into, at the time, the Creek Church actually didn't have a building. They were renting out a venue space.
Okay.
We walk into this church, and there's, like, fog machines and drums, and...
Whole different world.
Yeah, that was crazy to me, because we only did hymns growing up. So I didn't even know that this type of worship music existed. I thought all churches only sang hymns on Sundays.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that was completely different for me. So, obviously, I started going to church there. Trying to think of how to talk about more of my faith journey.
What would you say, like, if you were going to put, like, a title to your faith journey, what would be the title that you would give the journey of faith you've been on?
Ups and downs.
And give us a couple of those ups, a couple of those downs.
So, it's kind of a crazy story. When I was, like, 6... I believed in God, and like I would pray and stuff, and during invitation at church I would see these people go up and pray. So one Sunday I thought, I'm gonna go do that. So I walked up, and little 6-year-old me was just praying, and the preacher came up to me and said, "Do you want to get saved?" And I said, "Sure." I didn't know what that meant though.
Okay.
Really,
So it wasn't clear what that meant?
it wasn't clear what that meant. I kind of, I like believed in everything, but I didn't fully understand it being a 6-year-old.
Right.
So I sort of lived out for like 6 years this thought of like, oh, like, yeah, I'm saved. And I would go to church and all that. And then when I was 12, I remember we were in Sunday school and we were talking about people that think they're saved, but they're really not. And I started getting a little worried. And I was like, do I fully really understand this? I was like under this conviction during Sunday school. I remember I felt like so sick. I was like, oh, I don't think I'm like really saved, because like I kind of had that realization in Sunday school that day, like, oh wow, no, this man like he died for us. Like, have I really accepted him and like changed my life?
Okay.
And so I remember we get to like regular church service, and like the whole church service I'm fidgeting, I'm like losing my mind. And they even played a song that was, the preacher got up and said, usually this is sung during invitation, but I just feel that I want to sing this now. And I was just like, I need it to be invitation right now. And so when that invitation song, when it was time, I like grabbed my mom's hand and like went up to the altar and like actually got saved. And I like cried and everything. So yeah, like that was, so I got baptized twice growing up.
Okay.
Once when I was 6 and once when I was 12.
There you go.
So, I don't know. I think that can kind of resemble a lot of people's faith journeys in thinking like they're saved, but they're not really fully living out truth, if that makes sense.
Or even the idea that it's a journey.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we really focus on a very particular moment, and we forget that, think you got to that point at 12 years old, because there were 6 years of stuff that happened before that as well.
Yeah.
And really 12 years of investment even before that. And so, that's why I love asking that question, faith journey, because it is very much a journey to that faith,
It's not just like a diagonal lineup for everyone either, because after I really did get saved at 12, I did stray away. I was really just lukewarm for a while. I really didn't understand that you needed to have a personal relationship with God. Okay. That wasn't something that I really knew. So I would go to church, and I really was following the religion. Like, I follow like all the religious rules, and I was like a quote unquote good kid.
Okay.
And then I remember we found this new church when I was 16, but then, a couple years of going there, like when I came off to college, like I stopped going to church. Yeah.
So when you got to Campbellsville,
I
you actually quit going to church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. You would think it would be the opposite because.
Okay. Well, no, I mean that you have a new set of freedom.
Yeah.
I think, was it Ola a couple episodes ago? It was talking about like when he got some freedom from home, he kind of just went the opposite direction a little bit. So that's not uncommon.
Because that is kind of what happened with me is when, I was getting older. I mean, my parents couldn't really force me to go to church. Mm-hmm. So if I woke up and I didn't want to go, I mean.
You just don't go.
They're not going to force me to go. That was my choice to make. So, yeah, I really did. I strayed away for a while. And when you're not, like, rooted in, like, God, you will get really far away.
It's unsteady, doesn't it?
Yeah, you get really far away from the truth.
It makes me think of the building your house on sand or rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because I didn't have, like, a firm foundation in God, because, like I said, I really didn't have a personal relationship. Like, I would pray, but it was only in times of, like, when bad things were happening.
Right.
So, yeah, I started to really stray and, like, got into a relationship, and that person didn't go to church. I know. So I didn't go to church, and... just was not living a Christ-centered life.
So what changed? What was the turnaround?
Broke up with that person.
Okay.
Had
Decision one.
Yeah. Immediately got back into church, which church shouldn't be the whole foundation of your relationship with the Lord, but it is you should go.
the community and the practice.
Community and
is
the
really
practice,
important. Yeah.
Yeah. So immediately I got back into church. And then I came back to school. This kind of happened over winter break. I started going back to church. And I came back to school, and I really just had a whole 180. Like, I really just, like, turned everything around. Just rededicated my life, had that realization that I had to have a personal relationship. Just bought a Bible, started reading it every day. Actually studying. And... studying the Bible.
I was with some youth last night in another town, and they do this thing where they call it seminary class, and it's basically where they get to dig in deeper, and that really was one of my challenges to them was, actually it's read the word, but also study the word. There's kind of a difference in that, and so sorry, that just caught me funny because I think we really don't do that a lot. Even to the point of studying, like, who wrote this, why did they write it, who were they writing to, what are the core themes, all those kind of things, really, really important. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know why I didn't really study the Bible growing up. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew I was supposed to, and so I didn't really have the conviction to want to read it. But yeah, I came back to school, and this was the beginning of spring semester. So, like, this version that
Was it your second semester?
Yeah, it was second semester of junior year. So this has only been in 2020.
That's not too long ago.
Actually, your lukewarm period, if we would call it that way, was only for one semester long?
No, for like 2 years. Sounds like.
Yeah, it would have been for about
I thought
2.5 years of college. Yeah.
Yeah. Swimming in the lukewarm waters.
Lukewarm that whole time, maybe even straight a little further than that. At one point, I was having really weird beliefs. I was don't know
Did you
if
tell me you were agnostic for a little while? Is that what you told me one time that you were kind of?
Yeah, it was a really weird belief of like, I believed, it's so crazy.
Say it.
Oh my goodness, makes me feel like an idiot now. But I had this, I had this belief of, I believe in a higher power, and, you know, other religions, they take this higher power and they just give it a different name, and that's what I used to do.
Universalism is kind of what you're shooting at.
That's that's kind of what I
all
believe.
places lead to the same direction, just a different format.
That's kind of what I was believing, and then even though I did believe that, though, I wasn't practicing
Your faith.
my faith.
Yeah.
So I was at that time like self-proclaiming I was agnostic because I did believe those things, but I kind of didn't really care at the time, you know. So, and that's one reason I really warn against being a lukewarm Christian, because you can very quickly go from being a lukewarm Christian to not one at all, and that's dangerous.
Just the straying away kind of. Jesus teaches that lukewarm lesson. It's in Revelation. I don't know if you quote that or not, but this is just kind of a side note. I love the practicality of that. I don't know if you guys know this, but Laodicea, they had to ship their water in, and so their water would either come from Hierapolis or Colossae, and one place had cold water and one place had warm water, and by the time we got to Laodicea, it was what? Lukewarm.
Yes.
So like literally the people he's talking to is so familiar with this idea, and they think their riches and who they are going to take care of them, but really they're lukewarm and very poor and need Christ. And so, it's easy. I would say that's a struggle that a lot of believers in the U.S., especially in this area of the U.S., struggle with of just kind of living out a nominal faith. It's not really active, and they're kind of in a space of being lukewarm, not really excited about it, don't really necessarily care about it in a lot of ways. So I'd say that your story probably resonates with a lot of people in a lot of ways.
And I would warn, I'm thinking of that part of Revelation. I can't quote it exactly, but it does say it's like better for you to be not one at all than to be lukewarm. It says something.
I'd rather spit you out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Be one way or the other, hot or cold, man.
Yeah.
Don't be in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I actually have that highlighted for maybe a later podcast episode about lukewarm if we want to do that. But
So stay tuned if you want to look at. Listen to that podcast.
Yeah. I went through and I thought that would be a good podcast topic, but no, I read that and was studying about that, and that's what it says is it's better to be not one at all than to be lukewarm, because that is so dangerous. Because I kind of think of that question of what makes someone a Christian. Oh, well, they believe in God and Jesus. Well, are you saying that Satan and demons are also Christians? Because they believe the same thing. They also know that God is real and that Jesus is the Son of God. So what makes somebody a Christian?
Yeah.
So probably they're not Christian because they are not following Christ. Even though they believe or no, actually. But now, if you look backwards, do you think that you could highlight something that brought you back to Christianity? Or did it just happen out of the blue?
It was sort of two things. I came back to this semester and my friends sort of were like, hey, we're going to this church, and it was Heartland Church. So
community.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then?
I remember we went there, and they were doing college kid Bible study, and I was kind of like, oh my gosh, these people are all just my age, but they're they know the Bible. I'm looking at their Bibles, and
they actually follow Jesus.
They're worn, and they've got notes, and they're talking like they have all this knowledge, because in my mind, you had to be a Bible scholar or maybe an older person to know this much about the Bible.
Why'd you guys look at me when she said older?
No.
I don't know how I feel about that.
But I guess I just had this thought in my mind, and I did used to say this when I was younger, which was, I'll do it when I'm older. I'll get more into it when I'm older. But why? Why wait?
Dangerous.
But so...
What was your second thing? You said community, and then you said there were two things.
Or maybe
it was
study was
Heartland Church, because then we had the message that day, and I remember, it was just really good, and he was just talking about, I think he was preaching out of Oh, it was the series called Crockpot Christianity.
I heard about this, yeah.
Yes. And that day it was talking about like community and like wanting a church community where people are like fully living for Christ and not just sort of proclaiming they know God, but then not actually living out the truth. And I was
Just doing the motions.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that just kind of hit close to home. And that day I was like, wow, I really like Heartland Church. And so I kept going back and kept going to Bible study. And I like decided to not be lukewarm anymore.
Yeah.
Because the danger is when you are lukewarm, like you don't necessarily know that you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can just
Maybe
kinda
you
be
don't
sitting
even
there.
care what you are at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes apathy, complacency. Yeah, that's a really dangerous place to be in general, right? So, man, you good? You were gonna say something?
I was just going to say it is, because I would have that thought sometimes when I was like straight away, which was I knew like I wasn't really living a Christ-centered life, but then I would think, oh, but I got saved, it's fine, like I know I'll go to heaven. But you could have a much better life here on earth when you follow Christ. Like it's not just about the end goal.
Well, yeah, and the intention is a walk of faith, that you know your faith is being refined and that you're communing with the Lord. Sometimes we overlook that so much, you know, in this idea of like the Christian faith. You know, the greatest blessing is that we are now connected with the Lord and actually get to live life in His presence and in the power of the Holy Spirit. And man, your journey really, I love you bring so much to the table and sharing your story today because you're offering the ups and downs, like you said.
Yeah.
And when you really look at the characters in the Bible, their story is characterized by ups and downs, but there's always this thread that God is still working. And when you share your story, that kind of comes to my mind. You know, there's these ups and downs, even of faith. You know, you look at the life of Moses, ups, downs, doesn't even get to enter the promised land, right?
Yeah.
You know, you think of Joseph, ups and downs all over the place. And yet, in all of those, you still have this thread of God working and leading and guiding you in your faith. And so thanks so much for sharing that. If you were going to give a table tip, we always ask everybody to give kind of a tip at the table to offer us something because everybody has something to bring to the table. What would that be for everybody today?
Truly read your Bible every single day. I would recommend buying a physical Bible because when I just had a Bible that lit up, aka my phone, I wouldn't really read it because I felt like a disconnect from it, and then I
Okay.
get distracted because it's on my phone. So
something
buy
physical is.
buy a Bible. Somebody in your life will gladly buy you a Bible.
I was going to say, if you need a Bible, come to the campus ministry office. We'll give you a Bible.
Yeah, buy a Bible. And really, if you don't know where to start, like the internet will help you. Like there's reading plans, or you can just start in Genesis if you want. I would just recommend just try to do it for at least 15 minutes a day. Like if you've never read the Bible before, buy one and sit down, find a reading plan, and read for 15 minutes a day, and it will change your life.
Boom.
It will. I promise.
When Jesus was tempted by Satan in Matthew chapter 4, you know, wants him to turn the rocks into bread. And Jesus said, man does not live on bread alone. And that bread is the Word of God.
It is.
And so is Jesus himself, Logos, you know. And so great table tip of the day. And Hollyn will be back. We're going to have more conversations then. Like she mentioned, there are going to be some where we kind of like just dig into some scripture and kind of the story there. And so you guys be sure to check that out. But we'll see you next time at See You at the Table.
This podcast is brought to you by Campus Ministry at Campbellsville University, where faith, testimony, and dialogue come together. Stay connected, stay inspired, and we'll see you at the table next time.